I have been throwing for a long time, and I've been filling my cupboard up because it's a really rainy week in Nova Scotia. So today I threw the ones underneath there, and the ones above I threw late last night, and still too wet to put handles on. I just pulled a bunch of handles for the red clay ones, which I'm going to paint flowers on them. And here, our friend Bill Wright from www.artisanpotterytools.com has sent me some new tools. So I've got them laid out so you can see the names of them. If you want to look at them, just go to the website, and I'll give you a little review during this video of what I think of them. There's 5 different profiles there, so I think it'll be fun to try them out. I've actually got a block of clay. This is a 22-pound, 10-kilo block of 455 speckle clay from Pottery Supply House that I'll be using to play with the tools. Okay, which one to play with first? I've got a little jar of water here that I'm going to try dipping them in first. And so I'll go with the simple oval. I'm just going to use the length of the block of clay to do this. I've got some mugs. I may need to add clay when I'm applying them to the mugs, but I think this should be long enough. So you place it dipped in water on the surface, so it's just beneath the surface, and pull. Try not to let any clay or the tools above the surface of the clay. And I'm using my finger at the end. And pulling it back. And then lift it out. A little bit of clay stayed on the surface there, so I'm going to pull that off. So this is what it gave me. And on the other side it's perfectly smooth. So that would be a handle ready to put on. So I'm going to lay that down. Same again. Pull. So I'm just trying to see the metal part of the handle above the clay, and the rest is underneath. And it pulled all the way out. How about that? Oh, I'm happy that happened. I wonder if they'll all do that. So this makes it so much easier. And then just pull that off. And you've got a perfect handle again. Dipping it in water. Laying it on the surface, make sure I've got the handle completely in the clay, pull. And then at the end, I'm just going to let it pull the handle out again, hopefully. Yay! How about that? Well done, Bill. This is amazing. And I guess I could try leaving that lump on there, because that would be nice to have the extra clay there, but when I pull it off, it's just going to snap and leave it out there. So anyway, it's another handle. So now I'm going to move to the round. Dip it in water. And let's just let it go and pull. Yes. So this is again, so let's see if I can leave that lump on there by pulling right to my finger so I don't lose any of that handle. Sometimes I like a little extra clay. So that's a really thin coil. We go again. Push down and pull toward you. Just going to let it pull the clay. And it did. Oh no, it didn't pull it out altogether that time. So let's release a little bit. Yeah, I don't know why that one didn't. So I'm just going to pull the clay back so I can lift it out. Okay, so we can lift it out that way anyway, but it's nice when they pull right out. Okay, we've got the big circle this time. Dipped in water. Ooh, I can see the tool going through the clay, so I must be very close to the edge. Almost did it, but it did snapped off again. It's easy enough just to pull that clay back. And then you can pull the tool out. And you've got your own little coil, a much thicker coil this time. Be interesting to play with the handles, and I'm applying them to the mugs too. So I'll be experimenting with some different shapes later in the video. Now we're moving on to the heart-shaped tools. Dip it in water and pull. Nope, didn't pull out as well. So it's actually just a matter of pulling back your clay a little bit if they don't pull right out, but it is so nice when they pull right out. And then we have a handle where you have that really big deep ridge, and that's very nice. That will catch the glaze big time. Another heart, but a bigger one. Maybe if I don't go as deep. Didn't pull out again. So that's just a lucky break when that happens. But maybe with stiffer clay, it might actually come out easier. That could be just a matter of how soft the clay is. And there's another one, bigger, with the really big groove. Then we've got the biggest one, the biggest heart. Nope. It pulls a little bit, and then the clay actually releases from the tool. So, but it is not that big a deal to pull that back like that, because you get a perfect handle every time. And that's a very deep rut in there. Bean, which is that one. Dipped in water. Pull towards you. Nope, didn't pull again. Something different. I went a little deeper that time as well. I think the water makes them slide, but obviously that first inch that you're pulling in the clay means that the water's already been removed from the tool, and that's a less bigger groove. That's more like the handles I pull. The middle-sized bean tool, and after this I'll have to bang this block into another wall. So let's just not go quite as deep this time. But I don't want to pull the tool out. Oh, pulled out. There you go. So I didn't go as deep and it pulled out. So there's your tool with the groove. And then I can just pull the tool out to get that little extra off there. So that may be the issue. Experience. This time I'm not going to push this one, which is the larger bean. I won't push it as deep. So I'm really skimming the surface there. There we go. So that's the answer. Just don't go as deep, and then it pulls the clay out. So we're all going to learn by doing things for the first time, which is what I'm doing today. This is the first time I'm using these tools. Dip in water, and this one's called a coil. I'm not sure what that means, but it's called, the name of it is coil. So just don't go as deep. Oh, started to move and then broke off. And then get that little piece off there. So, oh yeah, that's nice. You got a double groove in the handle. Yeah, I like that. The surface. So look at, I'm skimming the surface there, so there's almost nothing left above, and then pull gently at that point. Oh yes, so it is. That's a matter of the depth. When you want to get it to pull out, you have to pull so you're almost at the surface. All right, but a lovely double groove there. So dip in water, pull through, but I'm not going to go deep. I'm just going to pull right at the surface so I can practically see the wire that goes left and right out of the actual spring motion at the top. And that's the trick. Okay, it took me 15 pulls and we figured it out. So every time you get this really nice handle and it'll pull right out as long as you pull right at the surface. And there it is. So there's the trick. Pull right at the surface. All right, so this is the pulling part of the handles, and that probably took me, because I'm doing it as a video, longer than it would normally take, but so I think these are just as fast as pulling handles, and the consistency is absolutely perfect every time. If that's what you're looking for, that's what you should be getting, one of these tools. You don't have, I mean, I would suggest my favorite here is the double groove one, which is the coil. I like that because I've never had that one before. But the heart shape one is what I normally use as a shape for my handles. But the bean one is also really good. So the bean, the heart, and the coil are my favorites of these tools. And you get consistent handles every time. Next we're going to see how they apply. Okay, what I think would be a final test of actually making these handles is how fast can I make them? Is it this feasible to do a bunch of handles quickly? So let's just try it. I'm just not going to, once again, I've learned my lesson. I don't press down too deeply. it pulls out straight away. This is the one I like the best with the double coil. So I pull it off, lay it down, dip it in water. I'm not going to bother smoothing the clay. Pull it off. 2. Pulls out instantly. 3. This is faster than pulling handles. 4. And they're not soaking wet and softened by pulling in water, so this means you can apply these straight away too. 5. Real time. 6. Is that 6? Yep. 7. 8. And last one on this lump of clay. 9. That gives me enough for everything I've got to put on my mugs I just threw anyway. So I don't know how long that was. That was 2 minutes 18 seconds to get 9 handles. There you go. I'm sure that's faster than pulling them as I would normally do. So and then I just have to bang that down so you don't trap any. Okay, I have a pile of handles here, more than I need, ranging from all those tools. So I've got some big mugs here. I got rid of a couple of the handles. They were just too big. They're not meant for anything this size. And this one is almost, I think, too big too, but I'm going to try it. So whenever I'm joining handles, I've shown you before, I do it so that you can really bend the piece. It's like, it's firm, but it's not, you know, sticky and sloppy. Or it's not brittle and, you know, in the way you'd have to score. I actually do it so that my clay, you can leave a fingerprint, but it's not so soft that you can leave a dent. And I've got these handles, and I've been looking at them, trying to decide what kind I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet each end of each one so I can soften up the area that's going to actually be applied to the mug, because I do like to make sure that the clay squishes together very easily. So I've just kind of moistened the very end of all my handles, and I put 2 fingers behind, and I just kind of give it a little firmness so that you can't dent the piece, and I move it backwards and forwards, and then I go up and down with each handle and twist it, just wiggle it, so that the surfaces that are touching actually can, you know, basically go melt together. This is a big handle. This is quite large. And then the bottom, I just make sure there's not any surface water left there. I actually do the same. Now you should look, you're looking at it pretty straight on to see whether it's actually completely vertical. Now you can see how big that handle is. But I'm going to go for it, we'll see, because I just want to show it. And then I do the same to the bottom. It's not, you know, like totally ridiculous, but that's a large mug handle. And then you can actually get a paintbrush and put that down the bottom there and just kind of put a little back pressure using the paintbrush against your thumb that's pushing the clay in up there, down at the bottom there, so that it will join. And then I'm going to push the clay down the handle, and I'm going to push some into that join area down there. So the brush is not slippery with water, but it's a little damp. But it will push clay from the handle into the little crevice that is between the handle and the mug. So you're just thickening that area down there. And like I'm saying, this handle is oversized. But I think it's interesting, since we're doing handles from these tools, that we should talk about what is, a relatively nice handle on a pot that looks good, completes its job as a device to hold the thing, without aesthetically making the pot look silly. So you have to kind of make some decisions when you're putting a handle on about the aesthetics of that handle. I just did some red clay handles and my water's a little dirty, and then I use a paintbrush just to kind of firm. This is a nylon paintbrush, so it's a little stiff. So this handle is so heavy, if you drop this mug, the mug's going to break and the handle probably won't, because this is a really, really strong looking handle. So I would say that this handle is meant for something much, like if you're building a casserole dish, so a big soup tureen, you could put something, using this tool to make a handles to go on something like that. But the groove is very deep. As you can see from that, it's a deep groove. And I have customers that want me to make really large handles on mugs because they have arthritis and they don't want to struggle with their fingers to actually lift a mug up. So this will probably sell to somebody who wants to have a really nice size handle. I also think it will add to the weight of this mug considerably with a handle that size. So that's that one. that would be broken off any kind of mug very quickly if I left that. So I make the little button to go on top with this one. And like I said in the pack, you could make a stamp out of clay that you could have your initials that you could press into this, and that would be your signature on your pieces. But I've always had this little spiral for the little button, and that's very easy to identify my pieces with that. And I may not be the first one who's ever done that, I don't know. Just about everything's been done anywhere in the world, I would guess, the way that the internet makes everything available to everybody. Everything means that, you know, the people in every country are probably doing something, if not even in the same country, two people doing something similar. But that means you should try to make something different. You know, I don't know. I think we should take what we're given and always try to adapt it and make it ours. Okay, that's one set of mugs. Okay, this was the one that I really liked, with the double groove. I have just, playing off camera a bit, folded the top over, folded the bottom over to thicken up the two ends to see if I could do that, and I simply did it by folding over and smoothing it in with a paintbrush. But I'm going to try with this one to do a handle that is, because that squared off one had potential, I think. These mugs are very soft, I don't need to really wet them. But what I should do is, we're using the damp paintbrush, just flatten the end of the handle so that it's tacky. And then we'll go right there, move it side to side. And do the same down here, looking to see whether we can get a good enough handle thickness there, side to side. Gonna put some pressure behind it. Just to make sure it's stuck, make sure it's not at a funny angle. And then you can take the paintbrush again. And I did this because I just felt like it was thin and it would need a little extra thickness to hold that. I always like my customers to know that my handles are really solid and they're not going to come off. And so the same up here. So the end that you're going to join on, I always like to be a little thicker at that point. And then you can choose, you could leave that groove visible there, you know, because you know it's joined underneath, but I'm going to try and just, in the small area there, I'm just going to push in. And then down the bottom here, I'm sure you've got the same thing, so I'm just going to do that down there. To make sure that's a little crack joint area, and then use the paintbrush. It's easy to nick a mug when they're this soft and make a little dent on it, so you've got to be a little careful. But as you can see, the brush isn't denting the mug, so there's a magic moment where the clay is really nice to put handles on without having to do any scoring and scratching. And then after that, it'll go past that point and you've got some extra work to do. So I'm going to try to work on just using the ferrule there to actually sculpt a bit with the modeling effect of the hard edge of the ferrule. I think I may have come off at a slight angle there. And then we squared it off, and so I can round off at the base down there and do the same at the top up there. And basically push out making the handle a bit bigger with the paintbrush, basically. 2 things in there, square it off. Now I'm not as happy with this one as I did with the other one. It works, but it's not one that I think I would try and see what maybe it's because I thickened it up at the join areas. Maybe I should try one where I don't thicken it. But that's plenty. I can get 3 fingers in there, which is where I try to aim for, you know. But I just feel like this is just a little bit not quite as pleasing to look at that one. So what do we have? Here's one, same handle, but not thickened. Let's go with it like this. Playing with handles, eh? But when I did pottery classes in my studio, BC, I refer to it before COVID, I used to see a lot of pots going out, mugs that had handles. The mug was fine, but the handle was a real disaster, and it would be too soft when they applied it, or it was just too big, too small. So it's worth playing with handles. So now, you know, without thickening it, I'm going to join it up. And then the same down here, but I'm going to need to put some pressure on the back, so I'll put that paintbrush down in there. Before it joins, I'm going to have a look. It has to come over. Just to touch. And then use my finger underneath to push that handle in. Leave the paintbrush in there in case I need to use it again. And then drying, make sure it's not too wet. Now it's a thinner handle at the joins, so maybe aesthetically this will look good, but it won't be as strong as that really thick piece of clay. So dampen it and come up there and pull in the clay underneath. And you basically push the clay in along the side of the handle as well. And then I roll the paintbrush over to actually join it by dragging that clay from the handle to the actual mug. So we have thickened it to a little degree, but I think this one looks nicer now. I'm going to use the water again. So maybe that extra thickness didn't really make it better anyway. Okay, out of all the handle mugs and these tools that artisanpotterytools.com sent me, which is Bill Wright, I love this one. because if you look at the handles, once I put them on, I think the middle tool was probably my favorite. The big tool works good too, but there's definitely a difference in the width and the handles when you do it this way, but I think the middle one was the one I liked the best. So the glaze runs down the grooves and gives you an added element of decoration. So I think that's a nice feature that you can get instantly once you get the tool. And this one is just the oval, and so there's no grooves down it, although you can see a line on the one on the right. That's just because I pulled it so close to the surface, it was leaving a little, you can see in the tool itself there's a little line where the two pieces of wire reconnect to the stem. So you get a line in there, which is kind of nice. But this one is just a plain oval, and I guess you just heard we have a thunderstorm going on right around me. This is the tool that was called Heart. So it's got a very deep green and deep groove down the center that's much more pronounced than the other one that was just bean. And there's subtle differences. Just this one is much more exaggerated with that groove. The bean is so similar to my own handles that I'm having trouble figuring out which mugs I actually made with these tools, because they're so much the same as mine. The one on the right is definitely the tool on the right, and it's just the largest of the bean. And the two in the middle, the left and the middle one, are actually just pretty much the way I pull my handles, so that's the way I do it. And I kept meaning to find an application to use these handles, handle make tools, but these I think need to be, I keep thinking in sort of very machiny, sort of, industrial kind of looking pottery, that these could make handles for something like that. But that just isn't what I do. So this would give you a perfect coil every time. If you wanted to make coil pots, use one of these.